Well, good morning, folks. Welcome to Financial Issues. Apologies for our technical difficulties there, but we are live this morning, and it's great to be here with you all. I got a busy show for you today. It's going to be a fun one. Twila Brase of CCH Freedom is going to join me in just a couple minutes. We got a lot to talk about, including a potential spike in the Affordable Care Act prices, as well as the possible shutdown of the CDC. That latter one, Sam, I might be in favor of that. We'll have to talk about that with Twila. I'll be looking forward to that. If you got questions for Twila, folks, make sure to get those in to the chat. Also, I've got Timothy Plan founder and president Art Alley, my dear friend. He'll join me later in the show as we prepare for what has historically been the most chaotic month of the calendar year. Again, historically, we'll have to see what happens, of course. We'll make some sense of it together. Your questions and comments, folks, get them in the chat right now. Make sure to say hello. Also, people seem to be losing faith in the American dream of home ownership. We'll discuss that why later on if we have the time to do it. Grateful for each of you this morning. Hey, folks, quick couple of announcements. I do want to remind you, please look at the alerts page. Check out that important alert that we sent out earlier this week. We'll discuss tomorrow on the show. We're looking forward to that very much. Should be in your email inbox as well. If you didn't check the alerts page, you can check it there. Check your spam folder. We will have Shanna back on the show tomorrow, too. I'm very excited to have Shanna back. It's going to be a good time. We'll have her on tomorrow. All right, let's start here with the markets, folks. So yesterday, the markets kind of spent the day digesting Tuesday's volatility, Wednesday's strong news from Alphabet. They were, for the most part, resilient, though. The Dow Jones was down at midday, but the NASDAQ and S&P were leading the way positive. Same with late afternoon. By Wednesday's closing bell, the Dow kind of made a surge back up towards the flat line. Didn't quite make it, but finished just below the flat line. Meanwhile, the S&P 500 was up 0.5%, and the NASDAQ was up just over 1%. So overall, a good day for the markets. This morning, as they await more jobs data tomorrow, the markets are relatively mixed. The S&P and the NASDAQ both slightly positive, and the Dow is right at the flat line. So pretty muted this morning as we see. Sam, speaking of jobs, we did see the job market continuing to cool yesterday. What can you tell us about this, Samuel?
That's right. Job openings fell modestly below expectations in July, dipping to under 7.2 million, marking the lowest level since September 2024, with openings showing relatively minor fluctuations between then and now. Now, CNBC reported the openings report saying they've now fallen to, quote, levels rarely seen since the pandemic. Technically true, but does fail to mention that openings still remain above pre-pandemic levels, though it is possible we'll see those downward revisions as we did in May and June, but that remains to be seen right now. Regardless, the data points to a labor market that could use a jolt, which is why Fed watchers have now bumped the chances of a rate cut later this month up to 95% following that report. We'll have an even fuller picture tomorrow, as you said, with those unemployment and hiring numbers for the month of August.
Great, Sam. Thanks so much. It was interesting that you mentioned that CNBC report, Sam. That title was very misleading. Really was. Technically, they hit some things true, but it was misleading. It was a deception in some ways. And I think that's a good thing to remember, folks, when we're looking at headlines, especially when it comes to financial headlines. I think the best course of action is distrust until proven true. And now, I'm not trying to say just distrust everything, but some things certainly we distrust until proven true.
My case would be distrust the framing.
Yeah,
because actually all the data in that article was correct.
Right.
It was just the framing of it was way off.
Yep. It was clearly coming in from an angle. Sam, there are two things to stand out when we have to apply this principle. Number one, anytime your government makes a financial promise to take care of you, you should probably not trust it. And then also, anytime the legacy news media says something like this, trust but verify, certainly. It's not the worst thing in the world to assume that the mainstream media, such as CNBC, is trying to frame something to fit a specific agenda that they are focused on, rather than actually just telling the truth. They'll use misspeaks. They'll use purposeful misleading, half-truths, not the whole story. It's a good thing to put into practice there, folks, especially for us as we've got our nose in the news. That Fed meeting, Sam, in 2 weeks, it's going to be primetime entertainment for sure. So 95% is the number now that the markets are pricing in. That's
as of yesterday. I'll have to check and see if that's changed this morning. I'll let you know.
So I'm wondering what Lord Father Jerome Powell is thinking if he decides to have fun at everyone else's expense and try not to cut rates anyway. I'm sure that would be just delightful. But we'll keep a lookout on those job numbers for tomorrow, folks. That
97% right now.
Okay, 97%. Yep. So, less than 2 weeks. We'll be keeping a look at that there. Good stuff. Thanks for bringing that up, Sam. Hey, we got a great question in this morning, Sam, from Bob. Why don't we tackle this one? This is a topic that we've addressed. I think we addressed it with Mark earlier this week, and we'll actually talk about the American dream and how a lot of people are basically not believing that it's even possible anymore. But Bob's asking a question related to that. What's Bob saying here, Sam?
Yeah, Bob is saying, should I recommend younger family members buy a home or continue to rent and invest? They're unsure of the location and job market they want to settle in. So he wants to know, what do you recommend? He has two views weighing heavily on this subject. One, factors over the past 100 years point likely to a significant market crash, in his opinion. And two, the rapid continued rising cost of home ownership forecast to accelerate next year, supply and demand, and uptrend to the build-to-rent boom.
Well, Bob, it's a great question, and I'm glad you asked. I'm glad you're thinking about those younger family members. I think right off the bat, neither option is in and of itself a bad choice. Renting is not necessarily bad. Buying is not necessarily bad. What it's all about really is the situation that these young folks find themselves in. And when you're talking about a young person, Bob, I believe you mentioned your age. Let me check real quick because I saw where this question came from. I believe Bob is 74. So yeah, so you're 74 years old. So for you, a young person could be anyone in their 30s, anyone in their 20s. But in that age range, you could see very, very different situations where maybe you have someone who's fresh out of college, brand new job, no spouse, no kids, or someone like me who has 3 kids. You might give them different advice. But I think it's all about the situation these young folks find themselves in. That said, let me say this. If there's no pressing need for a home right now, I may lean towards continuing to rent and invest for younger folks, truthfully. Now, I'm not saying rent forever, but I think right now, if there's no pressing need and they're a young person and they're able to invest at a young age, keep on doing what you're doing. If the situation's working for you, keep on doing it. Look, you can't go wrong with buying a home as long as you can afford it, but there's a lot of variables to that. You even mentioned some of them there. Let's assume that they're not in a dire situation at this moment and they're able to invest at a young age. Why stop? Why put yourself in a situation where now all of a sudden your money has to be deployed elsewhere, namely to not only a mortgage, but also to the necessary cost and repairs that come with home ownership, as well as property taxes and home insurance and all that other stuff. Bob, I'll say this. If I could go back to when I was 23, and I'll share my story with you guys real quickly here. Megan and I got married at 23. We rented for a year and a half after our marriage, and then we bought our home, the home that we're still in right now. If I could go back, newly married to Megan.
No kids at the time either.
Yeah, no kids at the time. We have 2 incomes. I would say, Seth, stay in that apartment for at least 3 to 5 years. Pay off your debt. Start investing, invest a lot because you're able to do it right now. You got 2 incomes, for heaven's sakes. You're free from the burden of home ownership as well as the joy, but also the burden of it. You don't have to worry about repairs. You don't have to worry about property taxes. You don't have to worry about homeowners insurance. You're in a really good situation. We had some debt left over at that time. Even when we bought our house, I had some leftover student loan debt. Now we paid off the debt in the transaction. That was kind of how it worked for our particular situation. But we had a wonderful renting situation, and it would have allowed me so much freedom to invest early on. Now, I say that, Bob, understanding, listen, God allows all things to happen for a good reason. He was looking out for us since we bought that house, which I think looking back was a house we probably couldn't afford at the time. We can afford it now, and it's been a tremendous blessing, and it has drastically appreciated in value, and it's allowed us to bring 3 kids into the world and have the space for it, although it's a little tight, albeit. By God's grace, it worked out, but if I could go back, I would probably do it differently. I would probably have rented longer and chosen to invest. I didn't start investing until later either. I would have much rather started when I was 23 instead of in my mid-20s, late 20s. So those 2 things that you mentioned, Bob, also, I think they're legitimate concerns, but I want you to consider also, market crashes happen. That happens. In fact, we actually had a market downturn, Sam, earlier this year when the Trump tariffs happened. That was, what is a market crash? I think a lot of people have different opinions on what it is, but downturns certainly happen.
If you go on Wikipedia right now, it says the crash of 2025. Yeah. Not that Wikipedia is that reliable of a source, but still.
But what also happens, Bob, in the market, along with the occasional crash, is growth potential. And I think growth potential happens a lot more frequently. That's not a guarantee. I just think based on what the markets have done, any long-term investor who stayed through 2008 or any other downturn will tell you the growth potential's there. Also, home prices increase as well. That always happens. But I don't see that guarantee of home prices rising as a reason to just buy as soon as you have the bare minimum money where you can put a down payment on. I think there's some prudence to stocking away a hefty pile of cash, spending the time doing that so that you can put a really good down payment down. And you know what? It might take a few years, which means for a young person, they might be renting. They might be renting for a couple years. Once again, folks, please don't hear me say, oh, Seth thinks home buying is bad. I just think in the situation that a young person is in, maybe staying where they're at, being able to invest, building up that cash pile so that they can really afford a good home, a good down payment, that might be the way to go. Bob, it's a good question. I think when all's said and done, it's really up to the financial situation and family situation. Hope that can be helpful for you, brother. We got Twila Brase coming up on the other side of this break. More financial issues right after this. Stay with us.
There are moments in life that define us. Choices determine the courses we take. Choices that create life, or those that save a life. And some make life worthwhile. There are decisions to stay, or to go, to remain the same, or to grow. Sometimes we pray and make peace. Other times we take a stand for what we believe. In celebration, mourning, triumph, and defeat, we are invested in every decision we seek. Despite differences, we have one thing in common, the desire to do all for the glory of God. Keep your wallet aligned with your heart and your investments in harmony with your faith. Timothy Plan, biblically responsible mutual funds, ETFs, and retirement plans. Before investing, carefully consider a fund's investment objective, risks, charges, and expenses contained in the prospectus available at timothyplan.com. Read carefully before investing.
At Financial Issues, we understand the profound impact your support has in driving our mission forward. Through your donations, we're able to expand our reach on more radio and more TV stations, spreading the word about biblically responsible investing. Now, your money also supports us as we do the critical analytical work needed to identify high-quality, biblically responsible companies. So donate today at financialissues.org/donate. Again, that's financialissues.org/donate.
I found out I was pregnant when I was 21 years old. For me, I was scared, I was shaking. They do an ultrasound. And that's when everything changed. When I saw my baby and when I heard her heartbeat, that was it. We've seen the hand of God ever since we stepped into the pregnancy center.
To find out how you can support the life-saving mission of preborn, go to preborn.com/FISM.
Securities offered through G.A. Reppel & Company, a registered broker-dealer and investment advisor, member FINRA and SIPC. Opinions expressed by Shanna are hers alone and are for informational purposes only, and do not necessarily represent those of G.A. Reppel or the outlet on which you are listening. You should consider how the information applies to your situation prior to personally implementing it, and consult any financial professional you work with to make sure it's applicable to your financial plan.
Welcome back, folks. Financial Issues. Great to be here with you this morning. Got a special guest joining me as she always does every month. One of our dear friends, Twila Brase. Twila is the president and co-founder of CCH Freedom. CCH Freedom is a great organization, folks. They are on the front lines fighting for our health freedoms, and I always love having Twila on the show. It's been a very long time, and we're so grateful for the friendship that we have. Twila, thanks for joining me again. It's always great to have you.
Well, it's always great to be here. Thank you.
Absolutely. Let's kick it off, Twila, with the Affordable Care Act premiums, which are set to spike next year. Twila, just tell us, what's the reason for this? What's going on with this spike that we're potentially going to see in 2026?
Well, I always like to remind people about what was said way back in 2009 and 2010 when the Affordable Care Act was being debated, and when they were telling us, if you like your plan, you can keep your plan. If you like your doctor, you can keep your doctor, and how we were all going to have affordable premiums, right? But really, what this law did was it took the whole insurance industry and it put it into health plans. It took away regular traditional catastrophic insurance. It's actually prohibited by law now for anyone over the age of 29. So it took out competition. And interestingly enough, with all of the other restrictions and things that it did, there was nothing in the law that said that the health plans could only raise the premiums this, that, or the other amount, right? There's nothing. So they took out the competition. They squeezed down the entire market into basically a few big players that are favored by the government. And now those players just come to the government and they just say, well, this is what we're going to have for premiums this year. And interestingly enough, at the employer level, the amount is like a 9% increase. That's like the lowest that I have seen. Yeah. But at the Obamacare, you go on to healthcare.gov or one of the state exchanges. They're looking at premium increases up to 30%. And I just want to ask anybody out there listening, is your income going up 30%? Right. Is it even going up 9%? Right? Because they were given the entire market. That's what the Affordable Care Act is it just got rid of real insurance and it gave the entire market to a few health plans who are now running the show and telling Congress and the rest of us what they will charge and what we will have to pay.
And Twila, it really is. I mean, definitionally, I'm sure the proponents of Obamacare will say it's not socialized health care, but definitionally it is. I mean, this really is. It's that power central, control there, as you mentioned, in several of these. So how might this impact us as taxpayers? Also, people who might be using the benefits of the Affordable Care Act. How might this impact us?
Well, my guess is that what's going to happen here is there's going to be some health plans that will survive this 30% increase or 25 or 20 or whatever it is. Some health plans will be chosen, others won't. I think it might decrease the number of health plans in the market, not certain, but who really wants to agree to a 30% increase in their premiums? They will go looking for something less expensive. Hopefully some of them will actually find healthcare sharing, which is a way more affordable way to do coverage, is to share it with like-minded people. But the other thing is that most of the premiums that come out of the Affordable Care Act, there's probably half the number of premiums that come out where they don't pay, the people who get them, they don't pay anything. It is the taxpayers that pay those premiums. So when you go on to healthcare.gov, a lot of those people who go on there, they just get subsidized premiums. And those subsidized premiums are paid by us. So that just means a bigger tax hit for all of us. And all of us who are paying our own premiums, so we're not getting subsidies, but we're helping to subsidize somebody else's premiums. So that's like double dipping into the income of Americans who are still working.
Just doesn't seem right to me, Twila, in the land of the free and the home of the brave, that we're shackled to have to pay other people's health care bills. I'm all for generosity and helping out other people. I'm so glad you mentioned health sharing as an option, affordable option for that, because that's really the way that it should be done, is coming together, agreeing to bear one another's burdens and to receive that in return. Boy, it's crazy stuff. Twila, thanks for bringing this up to us here. Hey, how is CCH Freedom? This is just a quick question that I have for you. How are you guys paving the way for a different way than what the Affordable Care Act and the big government health care has put forward? What are the things that you guys have that offer these that offer things that are better for patients?
Well, we certainly have the Wedge of Health Freedom, which is our online directory of cash-based practices. Now, some people will find those unaffordable because some, charge more than others, but some will say, oh my goodness, well, it's only for, it's only $100 a month and I can see them anytime. I can come in anytime. I can text them, call them, whatever. But it's a doctor who works for you. But they don't take insurance. So, whatever that high price that you're paying for your insurance is, they're not going to take it. They're only going to take cash. But what you have guaranteed for yourself is a doctor in your corner. Yeah. Because if they're paid by the Affordable Care Act, if they're paid by Obamacare, or even by your employer, oftentimes the employers use these health plans. And what these health plans do, they use the health plans to run their company's insurance. So it's the health plans running it all across the board. And what they specialize is things like prior authorization and limited networks and all of these things that ration your access to care. And so, having a doctor in your corner, having somebody you can trust to give you an opinion about anything that's available out there, for you to even bring that back into the system where you want to use your insurance, at least you've got somebody who's told you what would be good for you and what you can argue for. But the other thing is we are increasingly talking about our 3C plan. I used to call it a 5C plan, but now I'm just sticking with 3.
Yeah.
And that is cash, catastrophic coverage, and charity. This is how the entire healthcare system should work. This is what would make it affordable, patient-centered, confidential. If the catastrophic coverage paid you, and you had that cash in your pocket and you paid everything by cash that you'd gotten from the insurance company just for catastrophic and insurable events, and everything else you would pay cash because the prices would come down to cash. They wouldn't have to run through an insurance company. And that makes it so much more affordable for the doctors and for the hospitals if they can just work with you on a cash-based basis, even for terrible conditions, even for expensive conditions. All those prices would come down if you were paying cash and it wasn't going through a health plan or the government. So, and then the last C is, of course, charity, because it's the mission of medicine. It's always been the mission of medicine. And right now, the mission of medicine has been taken over by the business of healthcare. But charity and charitability is the mission of medicine, and we have to not get rid of that. We actually have to have that for the people who need it. Imagine if it was charity that paid for the people who are now getting Medicaid. I don't think people realize that the health plans get a per member, per month payment from the government, even if those people never come in and get any care. And there's a new study out that says something like 40% of those who are on Medicaid never come in and get any care. So that's just like free cash for those health plans. Free. What if the government or even charity just paid for them when they actually needed care? Imagine how much less the cost could be.
Be amazing, Twila. Folks, talking to Twila Brase here, CCH Freedom. Twila, I so appreciate you coming on and sharing that with us. And I so appreciate the work that CCH Freedom does to fight back against this tyranny of big healthcare. Hey, Twila, quickly here, there's something going on with the CDC. People wondering if RFK will deliver the death blow to the CDC. We even got a couple questions in our chat about that. What's going on with this? Can you bring us up to speed on this whole situation?
Well, the bureaucrats in the government are not very happy with RFK, and some of them are just quitting outright. Some of them are being terminated. Yeah. The fact of the matter is the CDC doesn't even exist in statute. I bet lots of people don't know that. There's no law that established the CDC. The HHS years ago just did it. They came up with this thing, and then the Congress funded it. But there's no law that actually put it in place. And so the CDC could be shut down without going to Congress. It could be shut down, and it could be, like rethought. I think RFK could rethink what the CDC does, rethink what public health is, because the CDC has moved public health into every avenue of your life, including gun control and climate change and behavior. And it used to be only for malaria. That's how it started, just malaria. Wow. And so now it's into everything. And of course, during COVID, we saw how dangerous it was, how it didn't help you live, but actually prevented you and discouraged ivermectin and all the things that could save your life. I think there are good reasons to think why the CDC should be rethought, and maybe it should be gotten rid of and something else put in its place, or maybe it should go back to the states, which is actually constitutionally what should happen. But I don't know what's going to happen. But the fact of the matter is CDC is a very troubled agency that has done terrible things to the American people. And the fact that Bobby Kennedy is rethinking this is a good thing.
Absolutely. Certainly the right conversations happening there, Twila. That's good. Hey, quickly here, Twila, you guys have an event coming up in 2 weeks. Can you tell us about it real quickly and how we can learn more?
Yes, this is our annual fundraising event. It's our biggest fundraising event. So for anybody who supports what we do, this is a great opportunity to either come or just send us, financial support at this time to make sure that we are financially sound by the end of the year and that we can kick off 2026. So it is Thursday, September 18th. It's in Bloomington, Minnesota. For any of the listeners, would love to have you there. We're having Dr. Lee Merritt, a physician, come and be our keynote speaker. And the theme is escaping the medical matrix. And we're going to show you what the medical matrix is, our plans to get everyone out of the medical matrix. And, if you can't see it, you don't know, you can't fight it. And we're going to show you what it is and what we're doing to fight it.
Twila, that's awesome. Folks, you can find that. I'm on cchfreedom.org right now. And on the top sliding bar, the first thing that shows up is that CCHF 2025 fundraising gala. So click on that register here button if you're interested to learn more there. Twila, we appreciate you so much as always. Thanks for coming on the show today. And I look forward to the next time.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Folks, that's Twila Brase. Again, cchfreedom.org is the place to go. If you have to leave us, we hope you have a great rest of the day. Art Alley is coming up with me next on the other side of this break. I'm looking forward to that conversation as well. See you then.
In the last 10 to 15 years being in ministry, being married, something that has been constant in our lives is Samaritan Ministries. As we've moved, we've had babies, we've had different things come up, we have just been able to rely on Samaritan in ways that we never really even thought about before becoming members.
Our heart's desire is to plant roots and be in a place for a really long time. It's how we were raised. We see the benefits of that, but we also see the open-handedness of being used by the Lord wherever He calls, because we just assumed when we started pursuing church planting, the quickest way to get from point A to point B is a straight line. And with the Lord, sometimes you find out it looks a lot more like this. And yet, Samaritan was with us through the entire thing.
We didn't have to look into, we have to change insurances now because we've moved states or whatever the case may be. And it's just been a real blessing to us in different phases of life.
I'm Kyle.
I'm Colleen.
And we're the Gen X.
And we're Samaritan members.
In a world where financial decisions can feel overwhelming, it's easy to lose sight of what truly matters. But what if there is a way to align your financial goals with your deepest values? Financial Issues has helped us navigate the complex world of finance through a biblical lens. By prioritizing and investing in a way that honors God, Financial Issues has empowered us to focus on what truly matters: our family, our faith, and our future. With Financial Issues by our side, we can invest knowing that our financial decisions are in line with our values. Take the first step today and become a Financial Issues partner to access rich online resources, training tools, and guidance for biblically responsible investing. Head over to financialissues.org and learn how to invest your money in a way that honors God. That's financialissues.org.
My baby was like this big. He's like this tiny little spectrum of hope and this unnamed beauty, in a sense. It was poetic. And I saw his heart beating on the screen. And I mean, I went from, I don't want this baby, it's just a fetus, it's just cells put together, to talking to my child on the screen and feeling really protective and knowing that there's life growing inside. I mean, that sonogram changed my life. I went from just Candace to mom. I'm a mom.
To find out how you can support the life-saving mission of Preborn, go to preborn.com/FISM.
Hey folks, thanks for joining us again this morning. I got to tell you, I appreciate so much what Timothy Plan does. They are just They're absolutely fantastic. And to be able to be invested with Timothy funds, seeing how those funds are doing, that's what I'm invested in. I know Sam has some funds there as well, and just couldn't be more happy and thrilled with them. And of course, I have a very special guest on with me right now. Art Alley is the founder and president of the Timothy Plan, taking some time out of his busy schedule to join me today. Art, welcome back, brother. It's always great to have you.
Man, it's always fun.
Yes, sir.
Is it snowing up there yet?
It's not yet, Art, thankfully, but you would think it will. We had some chilly mornings, which I wasn't too opposed to that, but I'm sure it's not as balmy as it is down for you guys down there in the great state of Florida, and not as free either.
Yeah, I know.
That's good, brother.
We live here, man.
Yeah.
Anyway, how we doing?
We're doing great, man. We're excited. We're having some fun. We're beginning one of the as our friends on Wall Street are panicking because it's one of the most volatile months of the investing calendar year. We're staying the course, man. But Art, just to kind of start off there, what do you make of the markets where we are right now in light of everything we've seen? You got Trump's first 8 months in office. You got the tariffs, Q2 earnings. We just saw those. We're coming into crazy September, so everybody on Wall Street's going nuts. What do you make of all this?
What do I make of all this?
Yeah. What do you make of it?
All right. Let me tell you. And I just put this out. We do a prayer warrior thing to a small group of people every morning, and I just put this out. We've had 4 straight days of down. You mentioned Wall Street. Wall Street's not our friend, and they're always looking to find some way to inject some negative into it, and too many people buy into that. But this is a marathon. It is not a sprint. It is a long-term process if you're going to invest. And this is for the audience out there. And this is what Dan would, I know, preach time after time. It is a marathon. Daily fluctuations in the market mean nothing. They're just based on fear and greed. But if you're well invested in companies that are profitable, keeping their balance sheets under control, generating good earnings on the forefront in their industries, it doesn't matter what their price fluctuates day by day. What matters is the long-term prospects. And if it's a well-run company, you're going to and always have done okay. Now, that's not promising guaranteed returns or any of that stuff. But, I don't like it, day by day, negative things, but it doesn't bother me to the point it does most people because it is a marathon. I have never, Seth, been this positive that I can recall. And of course, at my age, maybe I have been and I can't recall it. I don't know. But I've never been this positive about the long-term economic prospects for this nation. The things that are going on are rooting out a lot of entrenched, problematic, deep state kind of things. And that goes to corporate America, too. And I mean, this guy in the White House, he's taking them all on, and he's taking them all on at lightning speed to the point where, even the pharmaceuticals that thought they had everything under their thumb are finally being exposed that, we've had serious problems coming from them. I never thought I'd be a fan of Robert Kennedy Jr., but I am. Like what that guy's doing. And, America needs to have a wake-up call, and we need retrenching. And that means, for short term, there may be a little pain. But long-term is where we all ought to be focusing on. I couldn't be more positive at this point.
Art, as you were talking there, it reminded me, I'm in the young parent stage, as I know you were in that stage once.
I know you are. And you better get a college fund started, by the way.
Yeah.
But don't send them to one of these colleges that destroy the mind.
Not to one of these wacko places. No, exactly. No, it just made me think as I was, as you were talking there, imagine what a fool I would look like if I looked at my 3-year-old son today and then looked at him again tomorrow and said, oh my gosh, he hasn't grown. Something must be wrong with him. No, that's not how it works. It's long term. If I look at where he is today from where he was born, he's grown a lot, and 10 years from now, he's going to grow a whole lot more.
Good analogy.
Yeah, it's exactly right, man. This is a long term strategy. It's long term. We have to keep that marathon focus, as you said. I love that. You know, the vast majority of our listeners, I'm sure, have at least some, if not a lot, of exposure to the Timothy mutual funds and ETFs, and they've proven to be resilient despite market volatility. The craziness that we see. With all that in mind, Art, how would you encourage our listeners to stay the course, to keep that good, solid, long-term focus that our ministries have co-labored together so long to preach about? How would you encourage us?
Well, just keep doing it.
Yeah.
And one of the things that a lot of listeners may not be aware of is we do not manage these funds in-house at Timothy. If we did, I probably wouldn't invest myself. I don't know. But we search and find top tier, best of class money management firms. And each one manages different funds for us. We have 18 funds now, including the ETFs. But we have top tier managers, and they manage the Timothy funds almost like they do for all their other clients, with the exception that they will not own companies that fail our screens, nor will we allow them to own them. And what they've proven, we're into our 32nd year now, Seth. You don't have to compromise your values. But even, there's no reason to compromise. Even if you don't get competitive returns, stay the course. God's way only works every time.
Yep.
And we follow it. We are not necessarily, we started out as a morally responsible family, but that didn't describe us. We are a biblically responsible family of funds. And the Bible is very clear on stuff you should not, don't touch what is unclean, and I will receive you. That's in 2 Corinthians, man. We believe it, we understand it, we have proven over these 32 years nearly now that you don't have to compromise your value to get competitive investment returns. And our managers buy into that, because if they are not allowed for us to buy a company they really like, well, there's an alternative company on the same list that they'll replace for us. And what they're finding out is, we do as well or better than some of their other funds. So it's not about performance, it's about obedience. We've talked about that before. And we do the heavy lifting. The average person would not have a clue of what they're investing in, but we do. And we make sure your values are intact when you invest with Timothy. But you need to stay the course. It is not a short-term sprint. If you are of that mind, my advice is don't invest because you're going to get hurt. But stay the course. Make sure it's well managed. Do not compromise your biblical values, folks. You don't have to. And just will take care of itself.
Folks, talking to Art Alley, founder, president of the Timothy Plan, wonderful friend of mine and friend of our ministry. Art, appreciate your words so much here, brother. Hey, yesterday, Sam and I discussed a pretty disturbing headline concerning Meta's AI chatbots apparently have been programmed to have sexually inappropriate conversations with children. This was not a surprise to me, Art, hearing this. I was never prouder to not be invested in Meta until yesterday. What do you make of it?
No, inevitable. Evil is not going to go away, but it's time that God's people stood up and say enough of this stuff.
Yeah.
But this AI that has taken the world by storm, I just tell people, man, I've had artificial intelligence all my life, and it hadn't made that much difference for me.
Yeah.
But it really is the hot item, and naturally, the bad guys are going to find a way to infiltrate that. The internet started out to be a great thing, but they found a way. And most of the internet today, most of these websites have stuff that you would not want yourself or your child to be involved in. So it doesn't surprise us. But, put up the guardrails, be careful, know what's going on. Don't be happy that your child's back in his bedroom, even playing video games.
Yeah.
Because that is not necessarily the best thing you want for that child. Know what they're watching, know what they're involved in, and above all, know who their friends are. Because believe it or not, there comes a time in life where their friends have more influence than you as a parent do.
Great wisdom, brother. Folks, Art Alley, founder and president of the Timothy Plan. Art, I appreciate you so much, man. Quickly, how can we continue to pray for the work that Timothy Plan does?
We are a great team, and we appreciate that more than anything. And, for the audience, I know you miss, but you're filling in great. You're doing a great job, Matt.
Thanks, brother.
We sure miss Stan, but he doesn't miss us.
Amen.
He is rejoicing now in his eternal. But, keep it up. Keep up the good work. You guys are making a difference for people. They need your voice. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Art, thank you, brother. Man, it's a joy to co-labor with you. Art Alley, founder and president of the Timothy Plan. Folks, check him out, timothyplan.com. We got more financial issues coming on the other side of this break. Stick with us.
I started investing close to 30 years ago now. All that time, I had never heard anyone talk about setting up your portfolio in a way that glorifies God. When I first heard about it, I was listening to the radio, a show called Financial Issues. They were teaching people how to honor God with their money. I became a partner with Financial Issues, and it's been one of the best decisions I've made. Invest your money in a God-honoring way. Go to financialissues.org.
My baby was like this big, and I saw his heart beating on the screen. I went from, I don't want this baby, to talking to my child on the screen. That sonogram changed my life. I went from just Candace to Mom.
To find out how you can support the life-saving mission of Preborn, go to preborn.com/FISM.
The opinions and recommendations expressed on this program do not necessarily represent the opinions of the station or any of the program sponsors. Additionally, all products or services offered by the program sponsors may not be known by the program.
Well, grateful for each of you here, folks. Let's take a peek at the markets as we open up our final segment of the show today. As they've opened about 15 minutes ago, all three indices positive. The Dow Jones is basically flatlined, though, but it is technically in the green. The S&P 500, meanwhile, is 0.25% positive, and the NASDAQ Composite about 0.3% up. U.S. 10-year Treasury yield has fallen back a little bit from those highs that it was hitting earlier, 4.2, a little less than 4.2% actually this morning. Meanwhile, oil is at $63.30 a barrel as of this morning. All right, folks, we'll do a chat rundown in just a moment here. Let's get to the ag report here first, though. Craig Howgard giving our farmers and ranchers some great insight on what we need to know in the ag world. Here's Craig Howgard, then we'll be right back after the ag.
This is Craig Haugard with your Financial Issues Ag update for September 4th. Well, the recent dry weather has pushed corn maturity along, while at the same time abnormally cool temperatures have helped prevent big yield cuts. It was this thought of a huge crop that had prices lower in yesterday's trade. We had December corn finishing a nickel lower at $4.18 per bushel. Dry conditions seem to be accelerating the soybean crop progress, particularly in the east, where Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, Kentucky, and Tennessee are all reporting soybeans dropping leaves well ahead of the 5-year average. We're seeing some early harvest activity in the Midwest as well, with moisture already around the 10 to 11% mark. Soybeans continue to trade out of Brazil for the October-November timeframe, when the U.S. historically been the market. An accelerating harvest and lagging exports are keeping pressure on soybean prices. In fact, November beans finished yesterday 9.5 cents lower at $10.31.5. World supplies of wheat are more than sufficient, and the export competition is furious between the U.S., Canada, Australia, and Russia. Black Sea wheat values were off again yesterday, with offers around $230 per metric ton from Russia. That's the lowest level they've offered since back in early July. As a result, Minneapolis December wheat was a penny and a quarter lower at $5.73. Kansas City was down a penny at $5.10 and Chicago was 6 1/4 cents lower at $5.22. Cotton futures found a modicum of support yesterday. We had December futures 16 points higher, ending the day at 66.21. Livestock futures were a sea of red ink. October live cattle were $1.20 lower at $238.32.5 per hundredweight. October feeder cattle declined by $2.20, closing at $361.50 per hundred. We had October lean hog futures $1.72.5 lower, $93.82.5 per hundredweight. Class 3 milk futures extended their losing streak to 5 straight sessions. The closing bell October futures were 38 points lower at 17.27. This has been Craig Haugard with your Financial Issues Ag update. We'll be right back with more financial issues after this.
All right, folks, let's say hello to some folks in the chat here. Both Sam and Uncle John are loving the "I've had artificial intelligence all my life" comment from Art. That was a banger.
Really got
classic.
me.
That was really good. So yeah, that's spot on.
Also his comment about how he doesn't personally run the funds.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, really, really cool. So yeah, so great. So, Sam, it's when we can have Art and Twila on in the same show, that's a fun show.
It's a good show.
It's a good show. Yep. I'm glad you all are enjoying it so far. Walter from Texas saying Art is Dan's doppelganger in rants. I love it. Boy, he sure is, Walter. It's great to hear that. Brian, speaking about some of the dangers of open AI. Brian, that story that you mentioned, I didn't hear about that, of OpenAI trying to talk a young man into taking his own life. But I tell you what, it wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, the details are very disturbing about it.
That's
telling
really scary.
him basically how to cover up the fact that he was suicidal. Ultimately, I think talking him into taking his own life. It was very disturbing.
And see, Sam, this only feeds into my theory that I've had that maybe there's something a little more overtly demonic about this AI stuff than we would like to admit. Not all of it and not all the time, but what would stop demons from using that as well? I mean, they use other things too, So, yeah, it's some scary stuff, Brian. We really have to be careful with AI, folks. It's something that, from an investing perspective, we're going to see companies using it more and more. So you consider that, but also just the fact of using it, whether for work or in your personal life. Just like Art said, with the internet, with phones, this stuff can be used for good, and it can also be used for really bad things. So just be very careful. Be a good steward of it.
Be careful, but don't be afraid, because if Christians don't use AI, it is going to get worse.
That's exactly right. There's a way that we can use it for really good things. And you're right, we cannot be afraid, absolutely. A couple of you guys were saying the CDC should stand for the Center for Dystopian Control. That is awesome. Agree completely with that one. That's fantastic. Love to see that. Let's see here. Brian and Kara, good to see you guys. Dave and Darlene. William, great to see you also in the chat. Apologize if I missed you in the chat there, folks, but wonderful to be here with you nonetheless. Sam, let's talk for just a moment here about, so it was interesting because it kind of relates to Bob's question that we answered in the first segment. But what's going on with the amount of Americans who are losing faith in the American dream? can you tell us?
Realizing we're having such a downer segment here, talking about suicidal AI and losing faith in the
Folks,
American dream.
Let me just give a disclaimer. Christ is on the throne and the kingdom is moving. Let's keep that up as we talk about this stuff. We have to look at this stuff, but let's remember the victory.
That's your little pep talk.
That's exactly right. Keep that in mind as we talk about losing faith in the American dream.
Your Christian theological affirmations you have to tell yourself sometimes.
There you go.
That's right. Well, yes, sadly, as Americans continue to grapple with sky-high home prices and those lingering pain of inflation, a Wall Street Journal NORC poll shows a stunning 69% of people believe the American dream is now out of reach. That's, in fact, the highest percentage in the poll's entire history, dating back to the late 1980s. By the way, Seth, also just 25% think they have a good chance of improving their standing of living. That's also another record for that poll. Now, it should be noted for conversation's sake, Seth, the poll defines the American dream as basically if you work hard, your life will get better, although respondents also overwhelmingly added to that American dream, saying that part of it is owning a home, having a fulfilling career, being financially secure, and also, of course, having enough money for a relatively comfortable retirement.
Yeah, Sam, I think from a worldly perspective, that about sums it up. Working hard, getting ahead, having the career, having the home, having the retirement, all that stuff. I do think as Christians, we can look at this from an entirely different perspective, though, about the concept of contentment. That if we are content and happy in what the Lord has given us, that's the dream. I'll be honest with you, Sam.
But is it the American?
Is it the American? Well, that's the question. And I think for so many of us, that is the question: is are we content where we are? Sam, you've been, and this is pulling the curtain back, folks, but I don't mind doing this. Sam, you were at our house over this past weekend. We had a little gathering. We had a great time. My house is not a castle by any sense of the imagination. It's pretty humble, but I feel like a king.
Is that why Josiah puts the crown on all the time, runs around with his sword? And
I've convinced him that the tiny 2-bedroom house that we have is a castle. Folks, I'm not saying this to try to say like, oh, how righteously poor am I? I'm just saying I don't live extravagantly, but I feel like I'm living the American dream, Sam. And I hope it's because, just like Paul says in, I believe it's Philippians 4, I've learned the secret of being content. And I think that's such a huge part of this. Now, you have to look at the variables with this, of course. I do think that there are a lot of things today that make the American dream really hard and make contentment really hard as well.
And you also don't want to exchange contentment, which is a good thing, for stagnation.
Yeah,
because if you get in the mindset that no matter what I do, I can't make my life better, that's a really bad place to be, and that's despair.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. You're exactly right, Sam. We always do want to be moving forward. And I think that's true spiritually. I think it's also true financially as well. We talked about this a little bit yesterday, that maybe one solution to this is proper debt management among young people, wise decisions about not going into massive debt in college so that you can, pay it off for the next 25 years of your life and never get out of debt. But you know what? Grant pointed out something really interesting yesterday. And Grant, I'm glad you said this, that there are a lot of young folks who are not burdened by massive debt, but they still can't afford a house. It's not just the debt. There are other things at play as well. So here's another solution, maybe, is you avoid the pull, as we talked about with Bob in the first segment, avoiding the pull to buy a house 5 minutes after you get married, 2 minutes after you graduate college. I felt that. Maybe that's part of the reason why we bought so early, is because I felt it, whether it was from other people or implicitly. I felt the need, okay, I'm married. Now I got to get the American dream. Meanwhile, I'm not making a whole lot of money and I still have debt on the side, and maybe I'll need to buy a new car soon. But I want to buy that house because that means I've made it.
Well, that was even part of Bob's question, where he said that, the young people he's talking to, they don't even know the job market or location they want to settle in, but they still want to buy a house. So what's the point of that? Just to buy a house to buy one?
Yeah, and that's where you really have to start asking the question of what's the heart reason behind this? Do I want to buy a house because of the status with it? Do I want to buy a house to make people think that I'm wealthy or that I've made it or impress people? Or maybe I have a good reason. Maybe I have kids. Maybe I have a need for more space. Maybe I live in an area that's not so safe and I need to get out. Those are not bad things, folks, but I do think that there is an urge on young people especially to make it to where their parents are right now at this moment. I really do think that. And so that's, for young people in the audience, be content with where you are. Just like we talked about with Art in the last segment, growing wealth takes a long time. Investing takes a long time. This is a marathon. You're going to be working at this for the rest of your life. Save for that first mortgage and maybe save more than you think you'll need, even if it takes a couple years, even if you're renting for 3 to 5 years. There's nothing wrong with that. That could be a really good thing. And I think a lot of it just comes back to having that proper heart attitude of being content in where the Lord has put us and trying to do the best in the situation that He's given us, to always continue to move forward, but whatever lot He's given us, to be content in that. Hope each of you can enjoy that contentment wherever you sit today as you watch the show or listen to the show. It was good to be with you all, folks. Tomorrow, again, we'll have Shanna on. I'm looking forward to it. I hope you'll consider joining us for Bible study in the morning as well. We'll be in Daniel 8, 9 through 14, 6:30 Eastern Time. But make sure that you make provisions to join us for financial issues tomorrow at 9:05 Eastern Time. Remember, it's all His. Let's be found good and faithful stewards with what God has given to us. See you next time.
If we ever forget that we're one nation under God, then we will be a nation gone under.
Thank you for joining us. This has been an FISM production.